Tell you what, it feels like it has been an extremely long time since I have been on here to do something other than my little One Piece shorts. Um, well, it's partially because, as some of you are aware, in my area, in my neck of the woods, it has been exceptionally cold. And that combined with work scheduling has made it difficult for me to um, have the time to do this. Um, I want to be a little more regular with these postings in the future, and that is the goal. Um, we shall see. We shall see. I do think that some degree of little more sophisticated approach, a little maybe editing, a little graphics might be helpful. But for now, it is what it is, and well, I enjoy it even if people don't. But hey, some of you do. I can tell. And okay, so The Fugitive. We're back to Proust. This is book 6, and this is the first book of In Search of Lost Time that is 100% new to me. Is that right? No. The Prisoner was the one that was the Prisoner. The one before this, excuse me, was the one that was 100% new for me. Okay, so this book and The Prisoner make up the two books dealing with the Marcel's relationship with Albertine. And you might recall that in The Prisoner, he was in fact, Marcel was actually in fact imprisoning Albertine in his family house in Paris. Uh, Not necessarily through a locked door and that kind of thing, but more through social convention, more through, she is a young woman that doesn't have very much in the way of means or family in the area. So she's very dependent upon whatever whatever guy is responsible for her at the time. And that being Marcel, he kind of exploited this a little bit and kept her kind of prisoner. And, you know, I would assume, given what he says in the book as he's writing this and the title of the book in English, that Proust was aware that this was creepy. I think it was meant to be. I think that, one way of seeing this is exploring the ins and outs and ups and downs of this one relationship. But, it would be very interesting to know if Proust had lived, if he had finished these books the way he fully intended them to be, or whatever his final intention would be. Because, bear in mind, whatever his intention was when he died, it could have changed between that and the time it was published, as, the intention of these books had changed over time from the first conception of them to their actual publication anyway, and to his death. But in this book, The Fugitive, well, The Prisoner ends with Albertine leaving, and this is the book where she's gone. So she is the fugitive. She has left him. Okay, all fine and good, but within like the first 100 pages or so, we find out that she has died unexpectedly in a horseback riding accident off screen, and he never sees her again. Now, he does receive 2 letters from her after her death that had been held up in the mail, I suppose, or hadn't quite been delivered yet by the time she died, which suggested that she wanted to come back. And that is the main character's perspective throughout. Remember, in The Prisoner, he was trying to deny he had feelings for her and all this commentary about who has basically the upper hand in the relationship, the one who is too loved, the one who, and blah, 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 on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It got pretty nauseating, actually, reading his rationalizations and his defenses for keeping her in this position. prisoner. But now that she is gone, he's debatably even worse because he spies on her memory. He sends people to the places she had been. He interrogates people that she knew, all with the intent to discover if she's had any lesbian liaisons or lesbian intents. He's obsessed with this, it seems, whether or not Albertine had lesbian inclinations. Now, the extreme threat that he seems to feel to his masculinity to this is very interesting, and the way in which he kind of sort of suggests that he thinks it's a very unnatural thing for two women to engage in this kind of activity seems to counter exactly what he says about male homosexuality, which is he seems to, although not himself apparently interested, he knows a lot about it and doesn't really mind associating with people who are known to be or suspected to be homosexuals. He doesn't mind talking about the conversation, and even seems to suggest that he finds some beauty in the relationships and maybe even in the physicality. But it's really, really, really hard to be certain. There's some conventions here of time period. There are some issues with translation. There are potentially some, coded words. Like the entire relationship with Albertine is potentially with a young man instead of a young woman. It's not 100% clear. There are other places where Proust definitely indicates that he refers to young men as girls and whatnot within the homosexual community. So this entire relationship could be his, revelation and denial of a relationship with another guy at the exact same time. After all, Albertine is very similar to the name Albert. Gilbert is very similar to the name Gilbert, which would be, or either way, the male and female names for Gilbert with an E or not with an E. So there's definitely that possibility working here. Now, what works against that is that Albertine seems to be obsessed with the trappings of femininity, such as having a gown and that kind of thing. And dresses and style are discussed several times throughout The Prisoner and The Fugitive as well. More in The Prisoner. Albertine, of course, doesn't go out alone. She always goes out with her driver and that kind of thing. And one would assume that a young man could at least walk out of the house and walk around on their own without arousing much suspicion, where a young woman perhaps couldn't do that quite so easily. So there are some social indications that we are to be taking this as a woman, but perhaps part of it is that Proust is, asking us basically to see it both ways. At one point he does say that he doesn't think it matters whether the object of affection is same-sex or opposite sex. He doesn't seem to care about that. So maybe that's part of what he's doing here, is he's developed this very detailed heterosexual relationship, but has encoded within it, you can read this as a homosexual relationship if you're so inclined, and see the same kinds of mechanics working. Just because, there's a same-sex attraction doesn't mean that the feelings, doesn't mean that the emotional situations, does not mean that all the trappings of the relationship are necessarily any different. In fact, if you read Proust this way, he would be saying that they are not, in fact, any different. All that's different is the physicality. And he doesn't really directly deal with physicality the way we might be used to in 2024, 2025 now. We can guess what happens in bed, but we don't really know. There's a lot of things that he suggests there are a lot of places where he suggests that he and Albertine don't ever actually, in fact, consummate the relationship with intercourse. Perhaps they do with other things. It's hard to say exactly. Okay, so one thing happens in The Fugitive, which is really kind of disturbing, which is about 150 pages into it, he's pining for Albertine, who is disappeared, who was fugitive, who was gone, who was dead. And he meets a girl on the streets of Paris, a little girl, and he brings her back to his house and has her sit on his lap for an hour and pays her 500 francs and kicks her out of the house. Well, this girl tells her dad, and her dad tells the police, and the police come and talk to him and have him come down to the station to explain his actions. So he does so, and he is able to explain to the police sufficiently that he is not actually seeking sexual favors from minors, that he just wanted to, enjoy her company for a little bit. Now, creepy, 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 creepy. But it gets worse, because after he satisfies the police interrogation and the father leaves with the girl, the police chief turns to him and asks him where to find little girls, because he knows the kind of guy he is, and he's the same kind of guy. It's like creepy, creepy, creepy. The main character, by the way, does deny an interest in minors. He does have an interest in young girls, but he does deny a sexual interest in minors. He attributes a sexual interest in minors to other people at other places in the overall structure of this work, but he denies it here, and in a couple other places where it kind of comes up in passing in a way, he denies it. So for what it's worth, he denies that that's what this was about. But still, creepy, 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 creepy. And after this happens, a couple pages later, he bemoans the fact that he can no longer go and find little girls in the street and bring them home and do this because he's being watched by the police. Creepy. So, whatever you make of it, creepy. And again, I suspect Proust was aware of this. What his reasons are for making the main character kind of reprehensible and creepy and misogynistic, maybe something in the last pages of the final book will explain that. I don't know. I have not finished the last book yet. About a third of the way through. Hopefully I will finish it this week. That's my plan. And I'll have the report on it for you in 2 weeks. But yeah. Okay, so other than sitting around at home and bemoaning this lack of a relationship with Albertine because she has died, he finds out that Swann has died, and Odette Swann, his widow, has remarried Defornchel, what was the name? Let me look real quick and get that name for you. Anyway, so that has happened, and so that becomes Gilbert's new last name. And de Forcheville. Mademoiselle de Forcheville is the new Gilbert. And it just so happens that Robert St. Loup, that guy, he marries Gilbert de Forcheville. And our main character, Marcel, finally gets one of his dream vacations as he gets to go to Venice for a while. And he enjoys that. He is fascinated by all the young available women in Venice and seems to be trolling for them a lot, as well as looking at the artwork. And then this book ends with, the idea that Robert St. Luc is bisexual, or possibly even homosexual. That he had not been in his younger years, but apparently he developed this way. And he is compared to Charlot, who is Baron Charlot, who is his uncle, and they're given as two different sides of this homosexual equation, because Robert de Loup is still young and attractive. So, yeah, and Robert St. Loup's interests there kind of, relate to the Albertine and whether or not Albertine is lesbian and whether or not Gilbert is lesbian. And then he hears from Andre, and Andre seems to suggest. Now, Andre tells this elaborate story about this lesbian relationship, and and so the whole thing is lost in this ambiguity of she said, she said, she said, he said. Marcel feels that he can't get to the truth. And I think that kind of lack of certainty, that kind of deconstructing, if you will, of truth, knowledge, memory, is hand in hand with this kind of focus on revitalizing memory that the whole book is supposed to be about to begin with. So, who are you? Who are we? How well do we remember the past? Does the past inform us? How does it inform us? Are we in the present, etc.? Okay, so, and then we finally will reach book 7. So, more to come. Take care.